Hello. I'm here to openly confess something. I'm a fan of Star Wars. Just come out and say it right now. I know it's probably shocking to a lot of people, but with Star Wars, obviously, there's a few films that have come out in the saga, and one of them being something that's 25 years old this year, and was very much destroyed on the internet for many years, to the point of where there's people that genuinely think that this movie is like horrible, and I can't even fathom. Like, I don't understand how anybody can think this movie's terrible. But I'm talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. It's honestly, I'll say it's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie. It's not one I consider to be the best, but it's one that I've definitely rewatched the most, and I am definitely the most fascinated by, because I think it's a really interesting movie, and one that I just keep going back to. And I want to talk about it because I just saw it in theaters for the re-release, the 25th anniversary re-release. And it was just such a great movie to see in the theater. It's and to experience it, and I felt like so just like I feel so like impassioned, I guess. I feel so I just felt like, wow, like that's classic movie blockbuster like filmmaking right there. Like, it's so well done, and I think the hate it got for many years has definitely it's ruined this movie's reputation, for one, and it's finally gaining a little bit more steam the past couple of years, thankfully, because I think it was a bit unfair. But it's a movie that I've struggled with for a long time, because I was sort of the belief that it was not great, and I was a bit of ashamed to enjoy it and be as fascinated as I was with it, and I didn't really want to say that I openly loved it, but I think and hope that we've reached a point as a society that we can start accepting new ideas, and I know that the news and Twitter and Reddit might not be great indications of that, but I do think there's people that are saying, not being afraid to say, they give their opinions on movies that maybe were a bit unfairly criticized, overly criticized, I guess I would say, from 20 years ago, and we're seeing this. A good comparison is we're seeing this with the re-release of all Spider-Man movies, and recently Spider-Man 3 was in theaters, and we're kind of seeing these people being like, oh, this movie is actually kind of awesome, and not that these movies are without their flaws, but they're actually a lot better than people give them credit for. And it comes with expectations, fandom, the filmmakers behind them. It's all of that. It all comes down to expectations and what people were expecting with a movie. And I think, thankfully we have people kind of making videos recently and giving their opinions on these movies that have been, I think, a long time have been like, you've kind of been it's so stupid because there's movies and you should never be ashamed of anything that you like. I guess it depends on what you like, but any movie, like, just like, wear it with pride, whatever it is that you enjoy. It's like, whatever movies, like, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. It's just like, if that's a movie you like, that's okay. You can just enjoy it. You don't have to be you don't have to feel guilty for liking it. Maybe feel guilty about liking Free Guy or Deadpool. Otherwise, I think you're okay to like some stuff. Like, if you like The Rise of Skywalker, which, you know, is something I don't personally relate to, and I don't think I can. But if you like that movie, I want to hear why, and I want to know, you know, I want to talk with you. I want to have a conversation. I mean, we probably won't agree like on it ever, but I would like to talk to you about it, and you know, and also don't be afraid to like it. And that's kind of the point. But my overall point right now is that I've wanted to talk about the Phantom Menace for a really long time, and like I've said, I've been constantly fascinated by it. I've been collecting many things from that era because I've just been so. There's something about that era and the movie that's so specific, and it's like so. It's just something that like really has grabbed me for a long time. Like since I was like 13 or 14, I would say. I've just been so. Like it's just like so captivating to me thinking about it, and I think a part of it's just like it's one of the most important movies ever made, and that's like not. I think anybody that doesn't even like the movie would agree with that. It changed movies for better or for worse, and you know there's so much of it where it's like now every Star Wars movie, there's a couple months before the release, there's, you know, just waves of toys and, you know, all this stuff, like, you know, promotion, and they call it like Force Fridays or something, if I remember correctly, but they do all this promotion before the movie's even released, and like you're supposed to buy all these toys and stuff, and that's what the Phantom Menace kind of started. And you know, they had been doing that for years in Hollywood, but like this was like an extreme case, and I think it's like there's a video that details this, and I think they lost a lot of money actually on like merchandising for this movie, because they were putting in merchandise for characters that no one even like knew or cared about, like, you know, merchandise for Watto, like Newt Gunray, and random pod racers and stuff. Like no one cares about those. It was really bizarre, and it's really fascinating to me. But it, you know, not only just like the business aspect of it, it is also, it was like the first movie that was properly like hugely like, you know, there's movies that were like hugely anticipated before that, like Batman 1989, Batman, and like a couple others, but this was like the sequel or a prequel, I guess, to a very popular set of movies, and there was just an insane amount of hype for it. And you're kind of like, that's our society now, like for movies anyways, is like you now get these sequels that everybody gets hyped about, and like Deadpool and Wolverine currently, or you know, hopefully people are feeling the same way about Furiosa, which is coming out next month. You know, on top of that, like just this past decade has been like all of that, like starting with The Force Awakens and you know, the Marvel movies and whatever. That being said, I can totally understand why people at the time were disappointed by this movie, because it's so different from anything before it. Star Wars, like within the Star Wars universe. And if you're a fan going in, it's been 16 years since Return of the Jedi, you're gonna go see this movie, or you know, you watch the originals on your TV, and this is your first Star Wars movie you're experiencing in a theater, and you're gonna go see this, and you go in, and you know, on one hand, it is very much Star Wars, pulpy, like incredible, you know, set pieces, just like a lot of the designs are very Star Wars, but on the other hand, it's also very different from anything before it, and I can understand why people would be like, that is not Star Wars, like this is like, that's so bizarre, like this is like, I can't even comprehend, like what is this, why are we Why are we talking about the policies of an invasion, and like also just the Jedi being sort of ambivalent as well, like, you know, not being great characters. I can understand why it was like so disappointing at the time, but for all of those reasons is why like I love the movie now. Like watching it, I was just like, it's weird saying this, but like as a kid, you don't really know what's happening in the movie at all. But like when you watch it after the age of like 20, and you're like aware of like the political climate, and you know, you're aware of things that are happening in the world, and you watch it now and you're like, oh, like this makes sense. Like this is like a really kind of interesting story about a planet being invaded, and you know, just fighting back against it, and how, you know, you're kind of seeing the manipulation of Palpatine already early on, and you know how he kind of is rising to power, and it's really interesting. Like it's fascinating. And I think another part of why people didn't really connect with it didn't really like it or connect with it, was you know, the lack of a strong protagonist, which I can understand. Like there isn't really, like, I would say Padme is a protagonist and the closest thing, and then like people have mentioned this, but Jar Jar as well is a very close to a protagonist. They're the two that kind of have the main arcs, and like Padme, you know, ends up realizing that she can't rely on, you know, democracy and the Senate to help her. She has to do this on her own. She's got to be the strong leader that, you know, she was elected to be, and she's got to lead her people to fight back against the Trade Federation. And, you know, Jar Jar is, starts off goofy, ends up being a goofy general at the end. Sure, that's his character arc. Really, the movie is told in kind of like a documentary style of, like, it's just documenting kind of this one important spot in the Star Wars universe. And it's, and kind of the way it's shot as well, but it's honestly, people rag on Lucas for his direction and stuff, which I can understand, especially with acting. But the way this movie is shot is maybe the best, one of the best looking Star Wars movies. And it might be the best looking Star Wars movie, honestly. Like, I'm going to make that bold statement, which might be crazy to some people. But I honestly think there's a lot of great camera movement. There's just like so many just like wide shots too, where you're just like whoa, like that's like kind of stunning. And you know, also just some of the visual effects on top of that too, with like so many sequences that are just shot like so well, specifically like the duel at the end, like and it could be all 4 ongoing battles. The way that's shot is just like, I can't think of it any other way. Like it's, and maybe that's because I've seen it so many times. And this movie is like so core to me. But it is such a good looking movie. And that's one thing I'll mention too, is that this movie is so core to me. It's like, it's hard for me to properly to review it, I guess, maybe. And like, I guess that's what this is. I'm kind of just talking about it because I feel like I have to. All those reasons, like, I think it would piss people off at the time, but it's something that was like, I watch now, I'm just like, it's such a breath of fresh air from like, you know, I guess recent Star Wars movies and what we get now with like these like, you know, later year sequels and prequels and stuff. Like, I think compared to The Force Awakens, which is, I think, the best direct comparison you can make, which, you know, was a movie at the time I loved. I was 16. I was the right age. I was, you know, it was peak prequel hate and all that stuff, which was a movie, you know, like, I did love it at the time. And, you know, looking back on, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. I would dare I even say it's like a fine, like, the movie's made fine. It's done it does exactly what you expect it to do for a later year sequel. It's a reboot. It does, you know, it hits all the beats. And The Phantom Menace doesn't really do that. And that is why they made The Force Awakens, because The Phantom Menace didn't do it. And I used to love, the red letter media reviews and stuff, and now I think that they're kind of awful. Not that they aren't well made, and humorous at times, and there's not, there's some good points made up in it. Like the character sequences in those reviews is probably the most damning thing on the movie, because it's hard to say, but it's hard to disagree with, I guess. And like from that point of view, I understand. Like, you're going in to Star Wars prequel, you're expecting a swashbuckling adventure, and you get like almost like a drama with some like weird slapstick comedy about like a proxy war, manipulation of the Senate over these innocent planets, I guess. So you're getting this like completely separate thing, and you're expecting like the fun characters, the simple kind of story, and this is just like a lot of gray. And it's, while there is like some simple ideas, like I think it's like easy to root for the people of Naboo at the end. It's not like the rebels versus the Empire or anything. From like those like reviews, I understand why they pissed off a lot of people, and I can't blame people. Like, if people like hate this movie still, I kind of get it. Like, it is completely different, and if you didn't grow up with it, like a lot of like people like my age or younger did, and or even older than me too, like it's hard to say like if any of us can actually be like honestly critical. And I do think the biggest problem with the movie is I think it needed more Obi-Wan, and not just because of like Obi-Wan, oh, you may be a character like McGregor, whatever. I think it needed more Obi-Wan, just from the aspect of this guy is going to train Anakin, and I do like the idea that he's like sort of reluctant to take him on, and he thinks of him as a meaningless life form, but he does get lost in the movie a bit, especially when they're on Tatooine. They needed to show Naboo being like properly oppressed by the Trade Federation. Like, we need to see the people being like killed, or not necessarily killed, but like taken out of their homes, put in camps. And like some of the things that they kind of speak about, you need to see visually, because again, like as a kid, you don't really even know what's going on in the movie. And I think that's missed. And that's like my honest critiques, and I do respect a lot of what Lucas was going for too. Like, there's I think again, like the story I think is pretty good. Like, it's a very interesting story. Watching it now, it's like, wow, like it's like this guy is really pulling all the strings on this war, and or rather like this invasion, and like just how he's positioned himself to get more power within the galaxy. And you do want Padme to go back. You want Qui-Gon to train Anakin, because the council is just so close-minded. All the visual effects it's one of the most impressive movies ever made, honestly. The pod race is still seamless to this day. It's insane that they made those on computers in the late 90s. That sequence just is so seamless, and it's the sound design, it's incredible. And the final 4 battles was going on at once was something that I always kind of struggled with. I was like, there's too much going on, but watching it in the theater, it is like exhilarating. Like, it's sound like a hack critic right now, but it's honestly like you're kind of at the edge of your seat. You're like, oh my god, this is like everything's happening. The space battle is great. Like, everything works so well, and it like moves. The pacing, the editing is like incredible. Like, and that's something that I think Lucas has always been a strong suit of his, is the editing. And that's, whether the editors he keeps around, or him himself being an editor too. He's mentioned that he loves editing, and it is so clear in this movie, because like, yeah, the editing is just so crisp. It is paced so well. That final 4 battle sequence, I wouldn't say the movie as a whole is paced well, because I think it does slow down a bit, but especially on Tatooine, like I said, there needed to be some sort of they need to cut back and forth a little bit more on Tatooine, but you know, that final four battle is like, yeah, it's amazing, and a technical achievement. I mean, that lightsaber battle is just amazing. Like, it is something that people love it, and people talk about it a lot. Like, it's like the best lightsaber duel in the series, and I agree. It is 100%. And to see it on the big screen like that, it goes so fast, and you're just like, it is so impressive to watch, and it's shot just like beautifully. Like, it's incredible, and it's a movie I love dearly, and I hope people can kind of like come around and maybe, you know, see them in a different light, because I would take one of these movies over another Force Awakens any day of the week. You know, I think Force Awakens works probably for the people that were pissed about Phantom Menace when it came out, but now people hate the sequel, so I don't really know what Star Wars fans want. I don't think they want anything. I think they just want Empire Strikes Back repurposed and reused in a different way. And then I think they just want to clap when they see Boba Fett or something. I don't know. They don't even like Boba Fett anymore. I don't know what they want. I don't think Disney or Star Wars knows what fans want anymore. They're a crazy bunch, and I'm one of them, you know. But, you know, you like what you like, and you like some movies, you like some series that they do, and then you don't like some of them, and it's, you know, it's okay to like and not like some of them. But that is, yeah, one thing that, you know, I think needs to go by the wayside is there's a certain belief that you're stupid if you like the prequels, and while, like, you know, there are movies that are not without their flaws, of course. I don't think anybody is stupid for liking them, because again, it's when you watch this movie, like, coming out of it, it's like so intriguing, and you understand why there's so much lore behind the prequels and why they did a Clone Wars series and stuff, because it is so intriguing. And you're like, it's like, I watched it and I was like, I want to know more. Like, I want to know more about the council. I want to know why they're corrupt. I want to know more about, like, this, like, you know, Palpatine, and, you know, you're intrigued at least. I probably talked about this for too long, but again, it's something I kind of just had to get it off my chest. I just need to express how I feel about it. I'm glad it's being celebrated. I'm glad it's coming back in the theaters and people are excited for it. You know, at the movies yesterday, we saw people in cosplay going in for the later showing, and that was great. I mean, that's just fun. I mean, like, you know, people love these movies, and I'm glad that they can kind of go in and, you know, dress up. Like, that's fun. Like, that's cool. We're never gonna get anything like it again. It's one of the more fascinating and unique movies ever made. And from the standpoint of a sequel to Star Wars or a prequel. And I love it. That's all, I guess. I feel like I can talk about this movie forever. There's so much I know about it. I read and watched so many behind the scenes and videos and analysis and stuff about this movie. So I probably won't be the last time I talk about it, unfortunately. But and I don't want every video I do to be about Star Wars. Like, that's not, like, I would like a healthy balance, because I love movies in general, and you know, but obviously Star Wars is core to me, so it's gonna come up. But yeah, I love movies in general, and I just want to, you know, I want to keep making videos and talk about them and stuff. But yeah, Phantom Menace, go see it. It's back in theaters. It's a great time. Definitely see it in the cinema if you can, if it's playing near you, because, oh boy, the sound and music, seeing in the big screen is so exciting. And I understand why people were like hyped after the movie came out, and I understand why people went back a billion times to try to understand what was happening, because I don't think I fully got it until I watched it at the ripe age of 25. So, yeah, that's all I have to say, I think.